Hello. I'm coming on because this is a celebration and a big win day, and I wanted to share it here. Years ago, I unfortunately witnessed and was the first person on site of a bike accident that happened, and somebody I didn't know. And I'm the one that, called the ambulance, waited with her until the ambulance come, and unfortunately, she did pass. And it was just a very short time after my own car accident that I was in, that I was already pretty skittish with driving, and I had some anxiety around that, and a lot of fears and anxieties really lived with me in the day to day. So witnessing that bike accident and her passing really affected me to the point where I stopped riding a bike. I would get heart palpitations and panic attacks even at the thought of riding a bike, and especially the idea of riding a bike on a road or one of the main city roads. And it's interesting. I live in Victoria, and for those that know, for those that don't know, Victoria is a very bike-friendly city. There are bike lanes. There's all kinds of special pathways, bike trails. It's really bike focused, and lots of bike safety is put in place. And even with all of that, there's a level of anxiety I experience because of how that accident happened and what I witnessed. Also to note, when I was in my university days, I witnessed somebody that got hit by a bus on their bike and also passed. And, it's those things that kind of just stick with you in the back of your brain. Like, that didn't stop me from biking, but it did have me, extra cautious and extra careful. And then after my own car accident that I was in, that really, affected my experience of safety. It took me a while to get driving again. And then to witness that bike accident so soon thereafter, like, I was just, no, I am not touching a bike. I am not going on a road. And really, it was fine. It was fine. And, I didn't have the experience of really missing out on much, or if I did, it's like, well, no big deal. But I am in a family that bikes a lot. I am in a city that bikes a lot. I like not driving my car. I liked when I didn't have a car and I used transit, or I walked and I rented car shares. I like the idea of, having another form of transportation, and especially in this city of Victoria, where biking is such a viable way to get around, with how dense it is and how easy access it is to get across town into different areas, and then especially with the bike trails and the bike lane. So I, for this year, made a challenge to myself of, okay, what would it look like to bike again? What would I need? What would make a difference for me so I could feel safe and I could support myself, yet while challenging myself, experience a bit of discomfort, and taking, baby stepping my way out of my comfort zone and into something I really want to do. So I created this idea of what I would really love is, this summer, pack up a little picnic or bag to bring to the beach and bike myself to the beach, and use even the trails. Like, there's a bunch of rail lines that have been converted just to bike trails. Even if I drive to the bike trails and just use the bike trails, that's one barrier removed. So I'm still biking, and then I just have to sort out getting my bike to the trail. Well, I then decided that, great, but I do live so close to some of those bike trails. What would it be like if I built up some confidence on my bike that I could feel good or even great to get onto that road again, and to maybe bike on the city road and to bike my way to the trails? Because really, that would give me great access, so I don't have to, put my bike in the car or onto the bus or do other things that, just occurred like extra barriers that had me not actually take action. So I challenged myself. Okay, so I started riding my bike around just the neighborhood I live in, which are all, very quiet roads. So I could feel very safe on it because there's not a lot of traffic. So I've been riding my bike in the safe, quiet streets for the last couple of weeks. And then today I challenged myself, okay, take the bike out onto the main road and just bike to the bike trail and back. So then I would have an idea of how to access the trail. I would have some muscle memory around it. I would have an idea of the timing, of the stamina, and to also challenge myself, what would it be like? Like maybe the vision or, the thoughts that I have around what I would feel, maybe that's actually not accurate. Like I think I'm going to be anxious. I think I'm going to have these kind of panic sensations because thinking about it, I get quite panicked and quite anxious. So I made myself a very tasty smoothie that I really liked, and I treated myself in just ways that were really forwarding and giving myself almost like a big hug around myself, because it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. That's the way I pep myself up. I give myself little, motivations and incentives and things that help me feel great and feel good. I'm like, okay, this doesn't need to be a lengthy bike ride. The idea is I am just going to get out my bike. I am going to go down a hill and I am going to turn onto the main road, which has a bike lane. It does have a bike lane, and just ride a very short distance on the main road, on the bike lane, and get myself to the trail. And then turn around and come back. And I did it. I did it. I did it. I did it. And it felt great. It felt fantastic. There's a real thrill and a real pride that comes with taking on the things that scare us, taking on our discomfort, and saying something else is going to win the day. The love for myself and the commitment to myself, which I always call love wins the day, gets to win the day over my fear. I really don't want to live a life where fear dictates my life. Fear is a very appropriate feeling to have. Fear has a lot of good communication. Fear of this lets me go alert, alert. There can be danger, alert, alert. There are things to look out for, alert, alert. You might have certain needs that you need to put in place so you can feel safe. And that's all great communication. It's like, give me all the communication, fear. Let me know, everything you need to say. And then I can work with myself and meet myself in that fear and put in what I need. So it's like, okay, I needed a certain bike. I, need my helmet. I need to come up with the plan. If I can, put a little bit of preparation in plan and make it like baby step, just a little short segment. I don't need to push myself to go on, really long just through the city and face a very heavy traffic zone. I can baby step my way in and through the discomfort and in and through the fear. And then it's a declaration that the fear is not going to win. Like what I want for myself, what my commitment is for myself is actually what's going to win the day. And the pride and accomplishment that comes with that is one of the best gifts we can give ourselves. It really is evidence inside of ourselves, inside of our nervous system, inside of our thinking, inside of our brain that I can do this. I can do hard things. I can take stuff on. I can be determined. I can be resilient. I can show up for myself. And even if it's not overnight to the whole degree that I want, I know I can keep on goingly show up to myself. And on the other side of that, I get there. And it is such a gift to give yourself evidence that in actual form can happen, will happen, and does happen as a matter of who you are and a matter of how you take on your life and how you take on what matters to you and what's important to you. Now, for you, biking might not be something that's important to you. It might not be something that you have any fear around. Most people don't, really, biking is a really enjoyable activity. And, I think we all had many bike scrapes and injuries in our younger years that we got back up on our bike and we still continued to ride. But sometimes there's residual fears left in our life from all kinds of things, and sometimes they're not as logical or they're not as, it's not like the person beside you has the same fears or even for the same reasoning. We're each our own unique person with all kinds of our own contexts, lenses, and filters, with our whole own past and our own histories, with all of the things there that are sitting within us that are really important to us and that we want. My request for you today that I'm going to just ask is if there's anything that you have fear around in your life, if there's anything that you are afraid of, it's not like you have to go tackle it head on, but just take a look. Like, is there anything that you really want where fear is getting in the way? Is there anything that, you would love to do, but there's a reason, or there's a fear around it, or there's some anxiety or uncertainty. And there's practices that you can do to sit with yourself and to hold yourself. This isn't about bypassing and just stepping over that fear. It's about being with that fear. And it's like, okay, like it's likely very valid, the reason you have that fear. It's likely really valid of why you, for yourself, have that fear. You can bring understanding and compassion to yourself right away, first off and foremost. Bring some understanding and compassion. Okay, I have some fear. There's no shame around that. It's a pretty natural human experience and expression of having some fear. Thank goodness we have a fear response. It actually keeps us very safe. It's a very protective and helpful response to be able to have in our bodies. It helps keep us alive and keeps us moving as a species and evolving as a species. So, it is something that's beneficial and useful. There's no shame around, but it's great to meet yourself, sit with your fear, ask it, okay, what are you actually afraid of? Okay, so you're afraid of this. Well, you can ask, what am I specifically afraid of? And this is a great time when you can get your journal and a pen out. Or some people just like to talk out loud and just talk it out, move it out. As you're at a gym or running, think it out, process it out. But ask yourself these kind of questions like, well, what specifically am I afraid of? Just like you're having a conversation with yourself. There's no judgment that needs to happen around it. It's just being curious, oh, okay, you're afraid of having, like, I discovered for myself, I wasn't actually afraid of being on the road. I was afraid of my level of anxiety that I would have would make it hard to pay attention to what I was doing, which would then be less safe. So I actually do consider the roads around me and this where I'm biking pretty safe, but I was more afraid of the anxiety and the fear response of getting in my way and causing harm to myself. And when I kind of got more specific like that, it was like, wow, okay, so I'm more afraid of the anxiety. I'm more afraid of my fear response. Is there anything that I can do to support myself? Was the next question. Okay, now that I have that information, is there anything I can do to support myself, to meet myself where I am and give myself my needs? Something that, people that know me or that have worked with me know that, needs are not a dirty word. Needs are not a bad word. We have needs. We are a human. We have needs. Meeting our needs, speaking our needs, saying our needs, and supporting our needs is beautiful. It is not a bad thing. It is not a sign of weakness in any way, shape, or form. It's like, okay, I have some needs here. I have some needs for safety. I have some needs for taking it slow. I have a need to baby step my way through this. I have a need to give myself an experience of feeling really safe and regulated so I can feel confident when I'm out on that road. So I looked, one idea that came to my mind was to get an electric bike. So if I ever did have an anxiety attack or an anxiety experience, I could, at least not have to rely on my legs working and moving. I could press a button and the bike would just go. And I was looking for an electric bike for some time, but, then I got flooded with my brain can get very flooded with too many options. And it was like, well, which choice? And it's an investment and which one's the best one? And should I build my own? And all these different things that it was like, well, that's seeming to be now a barrier to go that route. Is there anything else that I need? Anything else that can make a difference? And then it was like, okay, well, if I had a bike that, had a really low bar aspect, I could like just stand and walk the bike really easily without, feeling like I was going to injure myself in the process. If I had if I stuck close to my neighborhood at first, if I just didn't think I had to go and do it all at once and I could just, play, what would it be like to feel like a kid again on my bike? Maybe even if I got the little, what are they, the spoke little colors or lights on my bike and kitted my bike out to be like a playful self-expression of myself. Maybe that would have me connected to my bike and excited to ride it and, work with myself to lessen the anxiety around it so it can have a more invitational relationship with being on my bike and riding my bike versus an anxious-based relationship. So I started looking at the different things that I could do with my bike to bring down the barrier of the anxiety and the fear and to have it be more playful or more invitational and inviting so that I would actually, more freely be able to be with it. Of course, to still have some anxiety, it's very normal. So my invitation to you is there something in life that you would really, really love to experience, really love to be inside of, really love to have in your future, but there's a fear or an anxiety that's stopping you from having what you want. And if there is, it's really easy to just say, oh, I can't do it. Well, and that might be the appropriate, to sit with that for a while. Sometimes we need to sit in the discomfort for a while to really get how important the thing is that we want in the future is. And once that threshold of what you really want in that future seems really big, that can motivate us to get past of our fear. And that can be a really viable way. And another way is just to meet yourself right where you are. To not avoid the fear, but just to be with the fear. Include it. Include it as really valuable information. Use it as the friend that it is. Make friends with your fear. Get related to your fear. Build a relationship with it so that you can talk with the fear and discomfort and get an understanding with compassion about what do you need here? What's the fear communicating to you? What do you need to put in place? How could you advocate for yourself inside of this? And then start to come up with a plan. And there's no rush. Baby step your way through. Hold yourself in the process. Do great regulation tools in the process. If you need to learn regulation tools, you can go Google regulation tools and there you go. And my hopes are the future of this channel, there'll be a whole list of regulation tools to have because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. And I'm, again, getting over another fear of being seen and heard. Oh my gosh. And taking it on in little baby steps to just be here and not let my fears and my limiting beliefs or my anxieties to win the day. I invite you to do the same. Meet yourself where you are. Gift yourself a future and something you want that's really important to you. You can do it. You've got this. The pride and accomplishment on the other side feels so great. And so anyways, this is me after oh my gosh, sweating uphill on my bike. Because of course, the first ride, and I did note it of my plan, was okay, the only thing that does make me a bit nervous is as soon as I turn onto the road, it's an incline. But it's a very slight incline. But it is a continual incline. And then I was okay, I made it to the top. Turned onto the trail, which is nice and flat. It's lovely. Oh, I love being on the trail and biking on a trail. Dragonflies were flying around and birds and beautiful flowers. Oh my gosh, I am going to so love packing a picnic lunch, taking it over to the lake and enjoying my day at the beach. I cannot wait. But the other thing that I did have to tackle on the way back, you think I'm going uphill on one way, then I should be going downhill the other. No, I got to turn down to the trail and then to get back up to my place because of the way the terrain was, I needed to go up another hill. Oh my gosh, to tell you the truth, I only biked halfway up that hill. It was much too steep. I really did not have the right gear. I need to practice going up hills. Oh, I was out of breath, but I did it. I walked it up the rest of the hill, hopped back on my bike and biked my way home. Downhill at the very end. Coasting into my driveway. Kind of awesome. Anyways, so what fear are you taking on today? What are you gifting yourself? I invite you to do so. Just wanted to come on and share because I'm trying to do that a little bit more often for the sake of ourselves. See you next time. Bye.